Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Moose. I'm with Fletcher Music, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do a string change on a 6-string guitar. What I have on me right now is a PV Composer, 6-string, 3/4 size, and it is equipped right now with some 80/20 bronze strings, a little bit of some discoloration on the strings. It means it's about time for a good string change. So, there are some stuff that you'll need to get yourself started. The things that I'm going to be showing you are items that you'll need in order to do the string change. The first one is a pair of wire cutters, or anything that can cut steel strings. Preferably one that's got the little bit of the dip here, so that it's easier to cut very precise in narrow areas. Then you'll need a string winder. The string winder will actually help out much more in this than the wire cutters, specifically because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be feeding some slack on the strings, and we're going to be doing many turns, so this will help keep our hands from getting arthritis for doing it for so long. Okay? And specifically, try to get the one that has this little bowl over here. This will help getting those pegs out much easier than trying to use your hands, or maybe even using like a plier or something like that, because you don't want to strip away the tuner peg. The other items that we're going to be using are not necessarily used for the string change, but they do make the guitar look a little bit prettier. I have a pine saw, which is some lemon oil. We're going to be using this for the fretboard to help kind of clean up a little bit. On the guitar itself, a little hard to see, but it's definitely got some discoloration. It's got some dirt that's been built on it. This is a guitar that's been used in our lessons for quite a bit, so it makes sense that we give it a good string change. And then last, we will use this Dunlop 65 guitar polish. This will help get rid of a lot of the scuffs and dirt that's been built up on the body, especially if you have a laminated top that has a little bit more of a glossy finish on it. This will make it a lot cleaner and a lot smoother. The cloths I'm going to be using them respectively, I'm going to be using this instrument polish cloth. This is going to be used specifically with the polish. I'm not going to use the lemon oil on this. And then the other one is I'm just going to use a rag of sorts. We have a rag here that has been used quite a little bit, but this is what we're going to apply the lemon oil solution on. Okay? So, first thing first, what you want to do with your guitar is you want to detune the strings. We're not going to cut them just yet, we're just going to detune them. Enough to where they don't really make a pitch. In fact, when you play it, it just kind of warbles. Okay, and do that for the D string as well. This is the reason why that string winder comes into play. And the B string. Make sure you're tuning them down in pitch. If you notice the pitch starts getting higher, you may want to go the opposite way. Okay, with my strings now tuned like that, what we're going to do now is we're going to cut the strings with the pliers. So what I'm going to do here is with the pliers, I'm going to cut right around the 12th fret. That way I'm not putting too much quick pressure on the neck whenever I put the strings on and take them off like this. Plus it'll help keep those strings from just flying at you and smacking you in the face. That's the last thing you want. Okay? With my strings now cut perfectly in half, I'm going to take the strings out from this side. Just put them out on the side for right now. Alright, here's where the pegs now start to come into play. What I'm going to do now is with the this, I'm going to basically feed this underneath and pull up. That should pull that immediately out, just like that. Sometimes they'll fight on you, so try not to do it too much, otherwise you'll break the peg. You basically want it to get seat under there, and if you hear a pop like that, right out. Do that pretty much 6 times. Sometimes the bigger strings are going to be the hardest ones to get out. Okay, so now I'm going to take my polish cloth here. This is going to be the cleaning portion. Show you how to get your guitar nice and cleaned off a little bit. So I'm just going to take just the instrument polish cloth, and I'm just going to use this to get rid of the dust. I'm not applying anything to it yet, just using this to get rid of all that dust. So get underneath the strings where the strings are. Get as much out as you can. Now, even if you don't have a sort of a polished surface on your guitar, like this one doesn't, the instrument polish here, the Dunlop 6505, or any guitar polish, make sure that says guitar polish on it, will be just enough to kind of clean it off a bit. And I'm just applying in different areas, okay? So on my cloth now, I'm going to do 2 things. One, I'm going to use a dry side, and one, I'm going to use a wet side. So the dry side, I'm just going to apply it around, get as much of the polish out, because I don't want to waste all that polish. I just want to spread it around like butter on toast. Okay? Now on the other side, especially if you have a polished surface, you use the dry side, the one that doesn't have any polish on it, and you're going to sort of use 2 fingers and buff out the guitar. Since I don't have a polished surface, buff doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but 2 fingers is enough to help get rid of a lot of the standing polish liquid on your guitar. Just enough to clean it off and make it look good. Okay, so now let's turn back over here on the neck. Now on the neck here, we are going to apply some lemon oil. We're not going to pour it directly on the neck. Instead, we're going to apply just a little bit of a dab, not too much, just literally a simple little drop of pine sol on the cloth itself. So I'm going to flip it over, let it sit, and get a little dot like that. That's perfectly enough. Okay? Now I'm going to kind of pinch it with my thumb and 2 fingers here. And I'm going to use my index finger as sort of the point, and I'll grip these 2 on the side so I kind of have that sort of shape on here. Now, I am going to clean off the neck now. Start at the bottom, work your way up. This helps get rid of a lot of that dust and dirt that's been built up. If you haven't changed your strings in a long time, this may not get rid of a lot of the dirt and dust that's been sit on top of it unless you really, really deep green it, which may take you a while. And I don't want you to spend too much time doing this because you gotta go over the more important part, the string change. But this is a good way to help keep your guitar nice and clean. So I'm not gonna do a rather thorough job. I'm just doing enough to where I get rid of as much of that dirt on there as possible. This, like I said, this is a guitar that's been used in our lessons. And in our lessons, our students will actually sometimes forget to bring their guitars, so we let them use this guitar here as sort of a substitute. And because the majority of our students bring their guitars, thankfully, we have this guitar that's been sitting for a while, and it definitely needed a little bit of a clean. So I'm just going back and forth, trying to get in between the frets, the metal pieces, as much as I can. And you'll notice that sometimes your cloth will have this dark coloration. That's a lot of the dirt that we picked up on it. So our neck now looks way cleaner than it did before. Okay, now we get to the good part. What I'm going to be using to put the strings on, I'm going to be putting on a pair of GHS bright bronze strings. This will work with any gauge, but the ones I'm using is the bright bronze, specifically the 12 gauge, because this is more or less the medium string that you want to put on your guitar. I don't mean medium as in gauge, but sort of the in-between. Like if you buy a new guitar at a store, or chances are you haven't changed your strings on your guitar in such a long time, 12 is a very easy number and it won't put any strain on your guitar at all. So 12 is recommended. Okay, so now we're going to take the sucker out and put them in. So I'm going to take my pliers here, cut it open, because they seal these packages nice and tight. Alright. And there we go. All 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now sometimes your strings will be labeled with little numbers instead of telling you what the string is. But for a good rule of judgment, especially if you're new to guitar, it always goes from big to small in terms of strings. So you're going to have the biggest number and the smallest number. So here is where the high E would be, and here is where the low E or big B would be, or the big E. Excuse my language. So 12, smallest. 16 is definitely bigger than that. 24 is bigger than that. 32, 42, 54. So this is the biggest one. I'm going to start with the biggest one first. I'm going to open it up. Like I said, this pliers is probably going to be used more than than what it's purposed for, but hey, as long as I can get the sucker out. Okay, let's come over here to the bridge pins, because we are going to be doing a little technique to help keep those strings from popping out when you put them on. Okay, so what you're going to do here is you're going to take the ball end here. This ball end piece is what you're going to fit inside the little peg hole here. So I'm going to feed it in, and then I'm going to take this piece here. Make sure that you have, let's see if I can get the camera to do that. A little hard. The little ridge right there, make sure you're getting that to face the direction of the neck. And I'm going to feed it in. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do two things. I'm going to pull the string up and push the pin down. So like a push-pull. And if I do that, it'll lock. Meaning it ain't going to come out no matter how much I budget. That's what we want. Okay? And we're going to do that for all of the strings. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the rest of the strings. I'm going to do the exact same thing. The exact same thing. Be careful which strings you put in. I accidentally put the D string in before the A string. You're going to do this for all the strings, no matter what size or how big or little they are. You're going to do this all the time. So number 16, which is the B. Okay, so all of my strings are inside the hole. They all have been push-pulled, so they're all going to seat nice and comfortable. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the big string and work on this one first. So very carefully grab your big E string, or any string for that matter, but I like to work from biggest to smallest. We're going to come over here to the head. So clean up my mess here. Get rid of all of this. Always clean your work up. Okay. So, when you grab your big E string, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that your peg hole is facing the direction of the neck. That way, when we feed it in, it'll be nice and perfect. So I'm going to feed it in, just like this. Good. Just like that, I'm going to pull rather hard on the string to make sure I can get sort of like a tone out of it for right now. This is not how we're going to tune it, but we're instead going to pull the string back this way and give it some slack. So I'm going to use my hand here. I'm actually going to use these 3 fingers to hold the string. My index finger is going to be my feeder, and I'm just going to put it right at the nut, which is the rather plasticky or bone-like material on your guitar. That's this part right here. So I'm going to feed some slack, and to measure this, I'm actually going to use the frets themselves to make sure that I'm using the correct measurement for it. When I'm working with the biggest string all the way down to the smallest string, I'm going to apply more fret slack as I go. So for the big E string, I'm going to be right here at the start of the 2nd fret here. So I'm going to pull, get my slack going. I'm going to pull the string back a little bit, and about right there is where I want to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use our string winder right here, and what we're going to do here is we're going to turn the string. Okay, now this is very important. A little bit hard to see, but do you see how the string's about to come back around? What we're going to do here is we're going to make sure that this tail end piece is going to go above the slack, just like that. See how it's above it? Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it, and the next time the slack starts to come around, I'm going to stay under. This is the over and stay under method. And each turn is going to stay under the slack. So it's over, and it's going to stay under. So let me show you how to do that again. Let me show you how to do that again. So, I'm going to go over the slack, like that, and stay under. Just like that. So now, your piece should look like this. See how you have the slack on top and the bottom part there? That's what you want. And I'm not going to tune it to pitch. I'm only going to tune it till I get a note of sorts. Okay? Now we're going to use the 2nd string and do the exact same thing. So, for the A string here, I am going to go to about the middle of the 2nd fret here. The middle. So I'll pull it all the way through, get your slack, pinch, pull back to the middle. Go over your slack. Make sure you hold your pressure and stay under. I'm bringing my finger up here so that way I can keep the slack from staying under and it's not going to unravel on me. And this is where the string winder comes into play. And I'm only going to do this till I feel tension and I have a note. Like I said, I'm not tuning it to pitch just yet. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for these strings here. D string is going to go at the end of the 2nd fret, right there. Over. And stay under. Okay. Now these next 3 strings, I'm actually going to be at the start, middle, and end of the 3rd fret now. The smaller string, the more slack we give her. Okay? Start of the 3rd fret, which is where my finger is right now. Now I'm going to go the other way because this is a bass side and treble side, so I got to go in reverse. I want my slack to come inwards, not outwards, inwards. So see how the slack is coming in the neck here? I'm going to go the opposite way. Any guitar that has neck or a head shape that looks like this, where you have 3 on one side and 3 on the other side, this is traditionally how you string them. So you're going to go in reverse. So I'm going to go over, keep my slack, make sure you don't let go of that slack, otherwise the string will fly around and you'll have to tie it all over again. And you stay under. We're going to do the B string now. This one's going to be in the middle of the 3rd fret. Pull your slack. Middle of 3rd. Over. And under. The reason why I'm doing my wraps like this is this will help keep the string sort of locked in. That way it doesn't kind of feed itself out, and it actually won't get out of tune on you as much. Strings will still get out of tune on you, but doing this method actually won't get out of tune as often, especially when we do the end procedure. And the last but not least, the E string. This one's going to be at the end of the 3rd. And this one I'm going to have to kind of treat it like I'm doing a bow and arrow and pull the bow back because so much slack is on this. It's going to fight me. So over and stay under. Every string I do this method. Every string, big or small. You see why the string winder is so helpful? You're going to be doing this for ages if you did this with your hands. Okay. Okay. So, all of my strings now have been overed and undered. I've been giving them in plenty of slack. Okay? So now, what you're going to want to do is you can either do 2 things. You can either use your phone's tuner, because there are some free apps to do it, though I don't recommend it because phones are sensitive and they'll pick up like air and noise and whatnot. This is what I'm using right now. This is a clip-on tuner, specifically a Snark. S-N-A-R-K, Snark. This is a clip-on tuner, and this will make everything a whole lot easier. I clamp this on the guitar and push the button, and it will tell me what the note is. Now if I set this to vibrate, it won't pick up any note unless I hit the guitar itself. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to strike the string and get my guitar in tune. Work with the biggest string. This is an E, A, D, G, B, and high E. Okay, so I'm not finished there. Instead, I'm going to come over here to the middle of the neck here, just so I can show you guys. So the strings are in position, they're all ready to go, but we need to get rid of any extra slack on this as possible. Otherwise, if we play a chord on it, they're going to get out of tune. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab just one string, I'm going to pull it up. I'm not trying to rip it off, I'm just going to pull it up and shake it back and forth. This will help get rid of any unnecessary slack that we don't want. Because if I played now, it's out of tune. So now, I tune it again. And I pretty much do this until the string pretty much does not fight me anymore. So there's D, B, and E. Okay, pull up, back and forth. Up, back and forth. Trying to get rid of any unnecessary slack as possible. See, now they're not getting out of tune as much anymore. At least that's what my tuner says. Okay, one last time because they were just a little bit out of tune, not too much though, just a little bit. I'm only doing this for maybe like less than a second. Sounds good to me. Alright, now let's go ahead and clean this up. So now with the last step in this, grab your pliers, and this one I'm using the one that's got the little beveled end on it because I want to try to get as close to the tuner as possible. So I'm going to clip the end off here. Make sure you don't accidentally clip the string that you just put it on. Go. Do that for all the strings. And doing it this method actually helps out a little bit. If you don't clip the end as much, if someone puts their hand up here, it'll prod their finger and you got something else to worry about. So, nice and clean. I can put my hand on it, shake it around. It's not going to pinch me, not going to scratch me. Got as close to the ends as possible. And that's what it looks like. Now, when you do clip them, you may want to tune it again, because sometimes they'll get out of tune since you clip the ends off. But thankfully, mine didn't. And so now, a little bit out of tune. A little bit out of tune. And there we go. Alright guys, my name is Moose, I'm with Fletcher Music, and this is how you do a string change on a 6-string acoustic guitar.